Hey, welcome back. In this video, I will be continuing the series on the genius of the 9TE types. And I really enjoy, I had this thought after the last video that I realized I learned like just as much posting these videos as you, the audience. And so it's very exciting to be posting each of these. I'd like to add on a little bit to the INTPs. I recently finished a book, this book here, Less is More by Jason Hickel. I think I see Jason Hickel as an INTP, and if you haven't read this book, I highly recommend it. It's I think it's going to become more and more relevant in very recent years, in years to come soon. I also thought to myself that degrowth is probably, from a PR or marketing perspective, probably the worst, or just a pretty bad name for the idea or the movement. The word I came up with was the term I came up with was whole growth. It's actually a very exciting and a very interesting idea, and I think this is one place, by the way, where INTPs shine, because when it comes to like ecological movements and ideas, it tends to be spoken from a TE FI lens, which makes it adversarial. It makes it so that it's like ecologists versus businessmen or something, right? But when someone can speak from a TI lens, introverted thinking lens, like this guy, where he simply lays out everything that there is, and then he also goes into different ways of thinking, philosophy, like the roots of the ways that we are working from now, philosophically, ontologically, meaning like how do we view nature, how do we view ourselves, how do we view the relationships, what is the roots of all this? When you can speak from there in a detached way and just lay out the information, and then speak to what the implications are and what the alternatives are, and you essentially don't take any sides and you don't make any moral argument really, then it becomes I feel that introverted thinking has this way of being able to just sidestep the whole debate and simply just speak anew. I liken it to what Martin Luther King was able to do for civil rights. I think once again, it makes sense, right? The first people to speak up when there is an injustice happening is FI, introverted feeling. Like, I will no longer stand for this. And FI is naturally on axis with extroverted thinking. And so the rhetoric, the way they speak, will be adversarial. But Martin Luther King, I view him as ENFJ. He has introverted thinking. And so he's able to speak from a place where it's like, hey, none of us actually have to be against one another. This is not a fight. We are mankind. And that's how I see this book as well. It's not polemic. It's not like fighting. It is, hey, here's our situation. What kind of future do we want? And looking at the information, here's our choices. I think it's quite palatable to anyone. Palatable to anyone. It's one way I can say it is also it's not political. But if someone's political, they can read into it however they like, right? So that's an aside. Let's see. Yep, that's one person I added to the INTP list on our document of well-known INTPs and what they bring to the world. And I just added on right there what INTP can add, which is the ability to speak a perspective without having any, without it feeling affiliative at all. It is not a political voice. That's what INTPs are quite good at. And how do you speak? How do you speak when you're not speaking from an affiliative political voice? Well, you speak philosophically and ontologically, which is like, hey, where are we going? Okay, so I have other non-TE types to talk about here. So the next people I think we can talk about is ENTPs. And by the way, the whole purpose of this information is to help me clarify that there are other ways to look at the world beyond TE and extroverted thinking, and to clarify what extroverted thinking is it's looking in terms of stocks and flows. What I mean by that is supply and resources, and thinking from scarcity and survival, and how do we best use our resources so that the game can continue, or like so that I win the game. Actually, that's extroverted thinking. And for TJs of the world, the XX TJs of the world, that's very natural for them to think, but it's quite unnatural for me to think that way as an INTP. And I want to talk about all kinds of types that don't think that way, and yet they contribute something very valuable to the world. It is beautiful they are the way they are, right? So I talked about INTPs last time. This time, ENTPs. So, a few examples. Adam Savage is the first person. And I have a few quotes from him which exemplify his ENTP qualities. I reject your reality and substitute my own. By the way, this is also a shared trait among all people who simply have high self-awareness and they speak their truth. That's what they're doing. When someone is deeply self-aware and expressing themselves, they are doing exactly that. They're rejecting your reality and substituting their own. And this is especially true of non-TE types, because TE types are assuming that you share the same reality. But that's not necessarily true. Here's another quote by Adam Savage. The difference between screwing around and science is writing it down. So this is a highly experimental, throw stuff on the wall mindset. And when you watch Adam Savage do his thing on Mythbusters, that's very much how he acts. You may be wondering the differences between ENTP and INTP. I can just share a few that come to mind here. ENTP, I feel their philosophy is built around freedom and the willingness, the availability of just more options. Like, as long as there are more options, then they feel alive in the world, and they want to be someone that can demonstrate that there are more options. That's opposed to INTP, which is all about like there are truths to be discovered, and I will speak to them and I will find them. That's more an INTP's preference, right? So ENTP is like injecting energy and openness to the world. And so you will find that many of them are privacy advocates and free speech advocates, and they just don't want a corporate structure to just like capture too much, right? Adam Savage. Oh, the other thing I want to say is ENTP's third function is extroverted feeling, and so they will be much more naturally accommodating for the people they're talking to in the group. They want to provide something. Like you can just look at his smile, right? They want to provide some emotional value for who they're talking with as well. Next person on the list for ENTPs, Richard Feynman, famous Nobel Prize winning physicist. Some quotes from him. Study hard what interests you the most in the most undisciplined, irreverent, and original manner possible. And it's a very extroverted, intuition dominant quote. It's very much just experimental in nature. And then there's introverted thinking there, which is like you pull it apart so that you can understand it, right? Here's another quote. I would rather have questions that can't be answered than answers that can't be questioned. Okay. So let's talk a little bit. I want to make sure I'm covering like how these traits led them to create what they create. If you look at Adam Savage's biography, you can see that he has held many jobs. I think I saw something like 20, and that like hodgepodge way of just navigating the world led him to essentially be the perfect person for Mythbusters. Like Mythbusters is that kind of show, right? Where you're just asking a question and you want to prove whether it's true or false. Perfect. The ENTP has that random tool set you need to be able to really like talk about this coherently. And the ENTP is also energized by this very fact, by this very premise of having a question that you want to answer, right? I also want to talk, so on to Feynman, right? I highly recommend Mr. Feynman's book. Surely You're Joking, Mr. Feynman. I love it. And in this book, he shares many pointless experiments he ran, which were so inspiring for me. One was he saw ants were moving to get some food. And he wanted to find out if he could create a little boat, and he could show an ant using the boat, like the ant gets on this boat and he moves the boat across the kitchen to some other piece of food, and then he shows the ant, and then he moves the boat back. Can that ant communicate that this boat will bring the colony food? So he spent like a whole day like trying to like teach the ant that there is food if he gets on this boat. It's like a ferry. And in the end, he succeeded. The ants were successfully able to teach the other ant. That ant was successfully able to teach the other ants, hey, if you get on this boat, there's food on the ferry ride on the other side. So this is just one pointless experiment of many. He was also known to be like the guy that knew how to hack or break open all of the locks while working at on project on the Manhattan Project in is it called Los Alamo? Los Alamos. He was known to like know how to break all the locks there, and he was constantly doing stuff like that. He also was part of the investigation committee for the Challenger disaster on the space shuttle. And you can see in his conflicts he had with management on how to conduct the committee, you can see his TI, his introverted thinking, which just wants to like find the answer and explain it, versus TE, which is like we want to just make sure the process happens, and in the process of doing the process, we don't want to cause undue organizational harm, reputation wise. Like that's TE's priority, right? Anyways, across all of these stories and many more, I recommend his book, right? I see where the fact that he was authentically ENTP created his life. Feynman is an inspiration. I recommend looking at like everything he talks about. I think you will find a lot to relate to. If you are INTP, if you are ENTP, if you are a non-TE, if you are a TI type, I think you will relate a lot. But especially INTP and ENTP. Next, Quentin Tarantino. This link here is where he says Hollywood is full of people who want people to tell them what is good. Quentin Tarantino found his place by telling people what he thinks is good. He has an opinion. Introverted thinking. And he's just a nerd. And the nerdiness allowed him to create movies that only he could create. ENTP. George Hotz. GeoHot. Hacker, programmer, first person to jailbreak the iPhone. That's the first reason why he's well known. And then first person to jailbreak the PS3. And like, what is the commercial value in any of this? What really drove him in general was that he thought it was cool. But also, you can see the freedom aspect of this as well. He wants open source. He wants everyone to be able to do whatever they want. And this is a very ENTP motivation. His latest company, TinyGrad, is open source. And it has no business plan. In other words, what I find really inspiring about him is in all the companies he runs, he has a technical problem he wants to solve, and that's all the company is for. TinyGrad is, he wants to democratize chips. He wants to make sure that compute is available for many people and not just through NVIDIA, right? So he made TinyGrad so that it can unlock AMD, but he's moved away from that. Anyways, he wants to democratize compute. And people have funded him exactly for that. And so he can authentically pursue this without any idea of how it's going to be monetized. Another example of how you can be authentic to yourself and you can still find ways to support yourself. His previous company was called Comma AI, self-driving. Again, people asked him like, what's your exit plan? Like, how are you going to monetize Comma AI? He would always answer, I have no plans to monetize Comma AI. I'm here to solve self-driving cars. And that's very inspiring for me, and I'm sure many people wanted to work for him because of the purity of his mission. Abraham Hicks and Bashar. These are two spiritual teachers. And they're quite out there. They're quite strange. They are both channelers. What that means is they relax and then they speak, and what they say is that something else is speaking through them. And it's my current theory, my current thought that the way that they present their work is so out there. Bashar claims to be the voice of an alien. Abraham Hicks claims to be the voice of like some other being. that the only people that would really be willing to look into this would be largely extrovert intuition dominant DOMs. XNXPs, right? And then the people that would most benefit from their advice would be fellow ENTPs or INTPs. So if you were one of those, I recommend that you really look into them. I think you will find that what they say essentially is to let go of extroverted thinking. Extroverted thinking is not the way to go. Don't try to make things happen. Don't take action to do it. Align with who you actually are. Align with your true self. They have been an inspiration for me. And when I've really been looking at like, is it okay to truly let go of TE, completely extroverted thinking, completely planning, outcome orientedness? Yes. These people are great examples of that. Quentin Tarantino, I'll look into how much he said about outcome orientedness, but there is one clip that I saw that he moved to Hollywood without a plan. He just knew, like he was I think he was 28 or so. He just knew that he wanted to have something to do with Hollywood. He was in love with movies, so he moved, and then he was able to start making a living as a writer, and that was enough. That was good enough. An extroverted thinking user would say, "Oh, but is it the income that you that supports your lifestyle? Is it the most you can make?" Like, these are extroverted thinking ideas. For Quentin Tarantino, all he wanted was to be able to work in movies, and that's what I see across the board in these kinds of people. They're not extroverted thinking high on the stack, so they're not doing a cost benefit analysis. They're not thinking about opportunity cost. These are like the extroverted thinking, and so they'll say like, "Oh, but are you making the most money you can?" You don't have to think that way. And when you are this kind of personality, like INTP, ENTP, other people that are not extroverted thinking, when you let go of that, you gain access to some kind of energy that I really hold unlocks something that is just, it is what creates the outcome in the end. It was not Einstein's desire to become famous. Einstein just loved physics. And because he loved physics that much, he became famous. Accidentally. So I'm building this case. There's another person on this list here that I will just shortly mention. Toby Fox, who created the game Undertale. It was crowdfunded through Kickstarter, and when people ask him like, did you expect the game to do this well? And he said, no, I just made a game that I really wanted. I liked it, and I'm just surprised that people liked it so much. I'm gonna put him on ENTP. He could also be INTP. He's one of those two. I don't see as much of a self-housed person that like speaks from his own view so much. Like, it's not something that he was pursuing. It was just kind of fun to do. Like, that's also what I see for ENTPs and INTPs. they're not so much like invested in what they're doing. It's just generally like, oh, you know, like, it's very whimsical. It's just whimsical. It's just like, oh, this is interesting to do for now, so let's do it. So that's the sense I got from him, and so that's why I put him here. But once again, because he's not extroverted thinking in his stack, what drives him is not the result or the outcome or maximizing some kind of metric. It's just that he wanted to make it. So these people, and we can go back over to the INTPs as well, are inspiring to me because they are motivated by something else. And I think across the board, if you look at open source software development, you're going to see many ENTPs, because ENTPs are all about freedom, the ability to have many different options, not narrowing things down, not capturing it, not being tied down by something. And so they often push back against corporations closing things down. I'm very inspired.